Hello, everybody. Welcome to Monarch Family Chiropractic's spinal workshop on Tuesday night on a continuation of our polyvagal nervous system, part of our nervous system. I'm Dr. Kristen Zawada, and this is a part 2. So I know that a lot of people initially were on this week's workshop for the safety pin cycle, and the safety pin cycle is a huge topic we talk about in the office all the time, and it really relates to this, and we're going to talk about it during this presentation and during some of these exercises, because it really is about the flow through the system, but in a different way than we used to approach it. So when we finished this workshop on polyvagal a few weeks ago, or about a month ago, we didn't really dive into what some of the things to do and some of the things that you can do to help your system if it needs a reset, or help just support it in the system functioning. So if some of this stuff that I breeze through here at the beginning is new to you or doesn't make a whole lot of sense, then I want you to go back to our YouTube channel and watch the polyvagal workshop. It's kind of coded under trauma to the nervous system from
14 February.
Oh, well, now I'm looking at February on the calendar. I thought we just did it. So time flies. So maybe it's going to be in February's workshops, but it's recorded and it's on the YouTube channel. So watch through that 30 minutes and it'll give you a lot of the groundwork that you'll need to know. So we're going to dive right in because we've got a lot of slides and things that I want to cover with y'all tonight, and things that I want you guys to practice together with us. There it goes. So I'm going to breeze through a couple things that we talked about like I said, a couple months ago, but neuroception is really when we're looking at the neural circuits in our body and how we distinguish whether a situation or someone is safe, whether something feels dangerous or life-threatening. So when we're looking at our nervous system, it's how our brain perceives what's happening. It will override our emotional response every time. Every time. That's why we talk about how important the brain is. That's why the signal starts there. That's where we start when we're evaluating you. Because for your body to function and your nervous system to function properly, we've got to be understanding what the brain and the body's perceiving as safe or not safe. And so our brain uses that internal and external cues, right, to assess the response that's required from it. And again, like I said, does it feel like we're in a safe place, in a friendly place? Does it feel like we're standing on the edge of that cliff at what's below, right? So it's how our brain is perceiving that. So the neurology and some of the biology around it, this is a slide from the last presentation, but I threw it back in so we could kind of do a quick overview for those of you that may not have been on that talk. And when we talk about the brain and the normal mode of processing trauma or a threat in any way, is we experience an event and it sets off the alarm in our brains. It sets off the alarm in a sense, the smoke detector, the part of our brain that may sense that fear. And then an executive function has to happen. And so that's what are we going to do about it, right? How are we going to respond to that thing or that event? And so that's kind of that watchtower part of the brain. And there's a component of different areas where memory comes in or emotion comes in, and those are two different parts of the brain. But when we do something about it, it's just based on how we're perceiving that thing. And if it's a safe thing, it's a fun thing, if it's a or experience or event, or if it's a fearful one. So if we can do something about it and the brain can process it in whatever way it does, then we literally have a discharge mechanism that our brain does. And it's like when you literally see an animal's shake, like when after they do something, and they're literally shaking off almost the experience or it out of their system. And our brains need to do that too. So if that shake off or that discharge doesn't happen, an event or something occurs and we process it and we deal with it and we can't move on from it, then those build up in our system, and our body stores that memory, that energy, and that lack of being able to discharge or respond. So this is also something we talked about last time, but I just felt it was really important to start this way before we go into any of the exercises and things that you can start teaching your bodies and your brains to do to support you in just having a calmer, more regulated system in all areas. That trauma isn't what happens to you, it's what happens inside of you. And again, based on your brain and your ability and the response, in response to what happens to you, right? And so one thing that was an old view versus new view that I'm going to spend a minute on here is just that when we talked, and again, this may not make a lot of sense if you didn't catch the other one, but going back and looking at it, we broke down the parts of our nervous system and our anatomic nervous system and the automated components of that. And it used to be looked at very much that it wasn't very important. It didn't have play a big role. Now we know the supreme importance that the memories and the stored responses or lack of in our brain holds. And that we used to think there was just the parasympathetic and the sympathetic, right? That SNS or PSNS, which is what we called the fight or flight, and then the calming, the rest and digest part of the nervous system. Well, now we're talking about it in ways that there's the three parts. So there is that sympathetic, that is the vagus, the vagal parasympathetic, and sympathetic component. And then there's this dorsal component. So the dorsal parasympathetic or sympathetic, meaning the shutdown part of our nervous system, where we're not actually responding in either fight or flight or calm, if you will. So the action used to be that it was like an on and off. Like if you had one was overactive, you wanted to turn it more off, or the other one more on. Well, it's more of what we kind of are talking about in this order of expression, that they all need to be on. We just need to be regulating them. And there's a sequence to that. So that vagal brake is more about being able to pump a brake when a system is overloaded. Coming into categorization, we always thought of the vagus nerve as being all parasympathetic, meaning all the calming part of the nervous system. And we now know that it's mixed, that there's different branches. The ventral is that frontal branch of the vagus that is actually not parasympathetic. So there is a sympathetic component to the vagus nerve. So it's not looking at it like good, bad, or yes, no, or white, black and white. There is this crossover there. And that we want to reestablish kind of newer branches in a more balanced parasympathetic and sympathetic, and be appropriate to the response and the challenge we're experiencing, not just let's work on parasympathetic and relaxing and expressing that more relaxed state. So, and that was really interesting too, when we get into talking about kiddos, that we're really looking at normal function versus a stress function, and a system being hypersensitive versus worrying about pain, because a baby's not expressing usually pain to us. In that way, it's having an experience, and it doesn't have a previous necessary experience as far back as maybe somebody in an adult phase, but that you do have it. And for babies, really, especially in a betrayal or something that happens in the connection with the parents, like what happens in those very first moments and days and months of life. So this was something we touched on, and I want you to see that difference of it being more safe versus not safe, and that there's this crossover of a hybrid blend that we're looking for. Right? So you can be in that safe state and it be the calming sense in sleep, relaxation, meditation. You can still have that safe space or safe state in that vagus nerve, but in that sympathetic component, that SNS. So looking at the middle on the right there in the green, that's when we're playing, when we're working, when we're dancing, when you're in, exchange with another human, and there's a component of excitement. That's still, if it's in a safe way, that's still just, you're in that vagus nerve bliss, but you're actually in a very active state, a sympathetic state of being active, whether it's playing a sport or an activity of dancing. Those are all ways of expressing it, but you're still using that vagus tone, if you will. And so it doesn't mean you have to be in that very calm, meditative Zen state to be using that part of your nervous system, or engaging it and expressing it and building it, like we were talking about. We want to make the layers more depth, they have more depth. So in the social engagement system that we're looking at, where it's not the way we want to access this nervous system, or when our body can't get into that safer state, it's because there's either been danger, a threat, and you're in more of a fight or flight. That is that sympathetic state. And if it's something more life-threatening or something that your body or your brain can't process, then you're going to shut down and be more of that isolated, disassociated, or kind of that disconnected state. So that's down in the lower left there with the red. So it's all in which our primary part of our nervous system is processing what's happening. So how do we get through those things? We talk about the self-reinforcing. So if you feel safe, you sense more safety. And we talked about this more last time when we talked about the whole neurology and physiology of the body. And if you feel threatened, then more things around you feel like threats. So it is literally that brain overriding and determining whether there's safety or threat. That's what neuroception is. So your body's just responding to the environment, and the brain decides what that is based on your previous experiences. So there's a lot in us, in a sense, evaluating and determining where you fall. But this is something, and I didn't put all that in the slides because that is something that Dr. Maiken and I would be looking at if someone needs more of a further evaluation on where their nervous system is sitting and where maybe they feel stuck, because there's multiple components of this in layers. So what portion of how we present, right, to the world is a byproduct of the nervous system's response to all of our past experiences. So these are some of the categories that we would look at and where someone's sitting. And depending on what category you're in is what we may more advancedly give you to do or not do in working through these components of the nervous system regulation. So the ones we go through tonight are going to be very simple ones that most everybody can do. And when we're looking at you fall in one of these categories of maybe the freeze or fawn, then we may be addressing what you do and what order you do them in differently in the office. So this is just for you to read through and see if something you think of, or somebody you think of, or someone in your, circle, that has experienced trauma, if it's not yourself, if there is a category you fall in here. And I don't need to read through all of them, but a fight or flight, there's a difference between how someone presents in how they address things, and more of their personality traits than someone who's a freeze or fawn. So whether you feel like you dissociate completely or detach from something, whether you're more impulsive, whether it's more of just the way in which you react or work through something and more of that flight stage, all these are different ways in which your body is processing past experiences, or where it is stuck along that path that we were looking at with like that pyramid. So we're going to drop into a couple of the basic ones, because again, if you guys were on the workshop a few weeks ago with me, we talked through the levels and the details of what polyvagal's doing, how the body's, where you may have fallen in that path and what kind of gets you into that path. So to not be reproducing all of those slides, there's some of that stuff that, we may need to go back and revisit and may need to do some assessing in the office. But when we're looking at dropping into a place of a calmer state, and this is something we want to do with repetition, we want to do, often, and it's about muscle memory, right? It's about retraining the brain. And so when we talk about befriending the heart, there's going to be pictures with all of these because these are the coaches that teach the polyvagal. And so we're utilizing their techniques and their teachings in the most current way, which is being done. Really, they're traveling all over the world teaching with polyvagal and how practitioners really pull this in. So this is something we're going to all practice, and we're going to do these, and I'm going to read out loud or talk out loud to you with what we're going to do so that we can all put our notebooks down. And whether you're at home and you're in a place where you're not in the car and you can do some of these breaths and some of this with us, I want you to just experience going through some of the breath work and going through just how you feel and kind of trying to take everything out of your brain other than just what I'm saying. And so we're going to practice more of the things that we were talking so much about in the last workshop. And as everybody's getting their stuff put down, I want you to find a spot in your seat, get things off your lap. I want you to get in a position that feels comfortable sitting upright. There's a slide we have where you may, if you have a spot you want to lay down and work through this one laying down that we're going to do in a minute, great. And in a good seated posture, I went legs uncrossed, feet grounded on the floor. Okay, so placing your hands over your heart, I want everybody to close their eyes. I'm just going to read to you and tell you what it is we're going to do. So I don't want you to feel like you've got to read along and follow along with what we're doing. I'll talk you through. So you're going to place your hands over the heart area. And what I'd say is feel around, find an area where your hands across your chest just feels right. So I kind of go in like a clockwise kind of motion, and it says find the direction of ease, left, right, up or down. And it doesn't matter if it's clockwise or counterclockwise, just find a spot where you're like, yeah, my hands fit right there. And everybody just has their own spot. And I don't know if I can tilt this to where you can kind of see me more what I'm doing versus for the recording down the road. But again, you guys at home and here, we're just going to listen. So you're finding that place of safety for your heart. And you're going to hold your hands there while we do this 4-7-8 breath work. And this is breath work that goes along with all the other things. So even if nothing else, you learn to breathe like this, you will be tapping into your vagus nerve and the calming, balancing part of your nervous system. So we're going to take, when you're holding this spot, you're just going to take a breath in for a count of 4. You're holding it for 7 seconds, and then a count of 8, slowly releasing that air out. And I think that's the hardest part. Most of us just exhale and our air is out within 2 seconds. So you're going to take a breath in for 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and out slowly. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And let's do that again. Breath in for 4, 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and out. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And I want you to just hang there, do your breath work. And then I'm going to talk you through this next component where we move the arms. So I'm going to read it first, and then we're going to do it together through that 4-7-8 breathing. So we will extend our arms out from our body 90 degrees. So they're going to go straight out. So this might be one with those of us right here together are going to need to move our chairs away from each other. Sorry, I didn't think about that. So let's all create space where you've got, scoot forward or backwards to where you've got room and to your side to not hit the person next to you. The beauty of being here, we're going to do this. We're doing this live, but we got to have room. Yeah. So you're going to, same thing. We're going to keep our eyes closed. We're going to be in just that nice posture, and we're going to extend our arms out from our body 90 degrees with the left palm facing up and the right palm facing down. Yeah, everybody there? Okay, so arms are out. I know you in video land, even if you're watching, can't fully see me. My screen doesn't go that big, but arms are out to the side like in the picture. Yeah, left palm up, right palm facing the floor. Okay, you're going to use that 4-7-8 breath. So we're counting 4 for an inhale, holding for 7, and exhaling for 8. Okay, so you're going to repeat that. And the goal is we're going to get up to 10 repetitions. So I want you to do a full breath in. I'm going to talk you through it. Close your eyes. Breath in for 4. Hold for 7. Out for 8. Then we're going to extend our arms up above our head with the same hand position. So one palm's facing in, one palm's facing out. Oh, I apologize. Right now, I guess they're both in. Yeah, in towards the middle. And I could count for you, but I know you're all just on your own count, so I don't want to screw up by counting out loud. So do 1 or 2 of those. 4 in, hold 7, out for 8. And then you're going to bring those arms back down to 90 degrees, straight out. And then now your right palm is up and your left palm is down. Perfect. Breathe in for 4, 2, 3, 4. Hold for 7, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and out. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Beautiful. So open your eyes. That's the rotation you can start with and do breath work at any point. If you're somewhere you can't be moving your arms, then your hands are just over your chest. You're finding that place of good comfort and center over the heart, and you're doing that 4, 7, 8 breath work. If you can add movement to it, it just solidifies what your brain is experiencing. So movement is key in many ways, and that's an easy way that you can tap into just adding movement with the arms. There is circle breathing that's really done a lot with yoga and a lot of practices where you're meditating or you're sitting or laying on the floor. So this is one you can certainly do. We're going to roll through and talk about a few others. You can go and, back and look at this or screenshot, snap this. And this is really where we can pull in kind of that concept of the safety pin, which is that if you've never done this in yoga or some type of other polyvagal work that we're not even going to talk about tonight, because that's much more in depth and much more detailed. But they go through a lot of the circle breath from you're starting and finding that place of discomfort. You're feeling where that is in your body. You're then breathing into that area of comfort, and then imagine that breath is moving through the place of discomfort. So sometimes you see it and you kind of compartmentalize through the body and work your way up from feet all the way up to head. But this is talking about doing it through a place of discomfort or comfort into discomfort, and doing it with that breath work and several deep exhales. But it's also talking about that breath into the base of the pelvis. So the base of your tailbone, follow that breath up the back, over the head, down the face, and then down the front of you all the way to your toes. So this is a different breath pattern and I think of the safety pin cycle when I read this, because we're just talking about that flow, right? From brain at the top of the safety pin, sending that signal down through our body. It's got to go out all those nerves and to the area that it's directed to. Then that signal has to come back in, up through the spine and back up to the brain. So that safety pin loop is a closed loop system is vital for your body to function and your nervous system to get a signal out, but then a signal back to the brain up. So doing that breath work, you're really taking it from that back side down all the way to the front side, top to bottom. So another great way you could do it when you're meditating or you're laying or you're finishing your yoga practice, or however you do your practice. Sorry, there I have to get to, there we go. So another basic exercise, and this is usually done, again, lying as well. You guys can do it seated in the chair right now that are here if you're not able to lie down. And I'm going to talk you through this one, but I want you to look at the pictures first. We're going to clasp our fingers or interlace our fingers. We're going to bring our hands behind the head and let the weight of your head just rest comfortably into your hands. Okay. You're going to keep that head in place, and you're going to look to the right, moving only your eyes as far as you comfortably can. So no head movement, just eyes as far as you can look to the right. And you're going to hold that for about 30 seconds, and you can go longer, but I'm going to time you at 30 seconds. Usually in this time frame, your body's going to do a yawn, a sigh, a swallow. That is all an expression of us processing and your nervous system relaxing. Now we're going to bring our eyes back to looking straight ahead. And for the next 30 seconds now, you're going to repeat just taking your eyes to the left as far as you can look. Your head stays straight. Your head is also relaxed in your hands. Just your eyes are doing the movement. Good, and that was another 30 seconds. So just in processing, you're allowing your body to slow down and to tap into that calming part or that vagus part of your nervous system. This is another one that we call polyvagal stretching. And this is a great one that you can do, again, anywhere. And it talks through kind of using the one we already did, right? Putting the hands over the heart, fingertips, and kind of find them facing each other, find that space where it feels really comfortable, and gently moving the hands kind of out and stretching away from the midline and then back in. But we're going to start at the forehead. So placing your hands on your forehead, and I will talk you through this too, because your eyes are going to be closed. And just sitting in a nice upright position. But if your back's supported, you feel like you want to sit back in the chair, I want you to feel like your body is relaxed. Feet are uncrossed and on the floor. Yeah, in a grounded place. Placing your hands on your forehead, right? With your fingertips and hands are facing each other. You're gently moving your hands outward to stretch the skin away from the midline. So you're just kind of stretching, yep, across. So those of you who are watching me, we're just doing a very nice, gentle stretch of fingertips touching and then coming across the forehead. And so I would say do a repetition, do 10 of them. Then we're going to place our hands on your cheeks, right next to your nose. And you're gently moving the hands outward so you're stretching away from the midline. So not down, but out. So think about just stretching kind of out to the sides and about towards not quite towards the ears, but out, down, and outward away from the middle. Do about 5 swipes that way. The next one is placing your hands on your cheeks over the jaw. So almost like you're, just cradling your chin into your palms. And you're gently moving your hands outward to stretch the skin away from the midline. So again, you're kind of just moving your hands back. And then lastly, was the one we already did, was just ending with your hands over your heart. Kind of go back to find that spot you found a few minutes ago. And just bring the hands from fingertips together to gently move the hands away from the middle. So bring them outward. Come back to that spot in the center and brush it outward. Awesome. And as you learn those 4, like where you're going, then you can really be focusing in on your breath as you're doing it, right? Breathing as you're doing those stretches. This one we'll just talk about for a second, but this is, again, when you're focusing on a more specific part of the nerve, you're placing your hands or the heel of your hands, kind of making a triangle and placing the heel of your hands or of your thumbs under the base of the skull and just allowing, to be cradled under. And there's movements of just supporting the head there. There's different progressing things, doing the sitting or lying down. So holding, when we do the ear component, so this is similar to the one you were doing when your hands were clasped behind your head. This one, it's harder to talk through when you're not sitting here, but palpating under the occiput. So you're going to, when you were doing the ears, we're going to a place where you're in a sense holding the outer part of the ear between 2 fingers, and you're just gently pulling the ear as you're doing that 4-7-8 breath. So pulling away from the head, back of the head, down to the shoulders. So just being able to kind of hold that outer part of the ear and go in that motion while you're doing that 4-7-8 breath. This is when we have more things that we're looking at right at the base of the skull. So heart and abdomen is one that's really key. This is one of the last ones we'll talk about today. That's one of the basic ones. And it's really activating, right, the reticular activating system. So it's that internal alarm clock, an internal alarm to become alert. So sometimes this one is when someone's in a sluggish state, fidgety, prone to low energy, or is struggling with attention and focus. This is a component of actually trying to activate the system. So while we're doing this exercise, drawing attention to the sensations that we have under the hand and on the body. So we place a hand on the heart and a hand on the belly. And to yourself, it's a statement. It is finding again that place of ease, holding for 3 to 5 minutes here, doing that classic 4-7-8 breathing. It's always longer on the exhale. And again, you can do it standing or lying. And it's really just repeating a statement of, now I am safe. I am safe now. And it's just tapping into being in a safe place. So doing this when you're in a safe place and just allowing your body to connect with that breath and supporting the body that way. So there's a lot of other work based around this. You'll see stuff under this brain gym and called the belly button technique, but it's really more about activating a system. So in closing, I think this was something we just talked about the last workshop. It was that your healing not being is linear, not in the way we think, that your trajectory is all about going through these processes, and that those are the 3 we were alluding to from the last workshop, right? The ventral vagal is when you're at that bliss state, you're safe, you're active, you could be calm and connected and resting, or you could be in an active state of working out. That's that bliss state of being very safe and being very connected. When you are in sympathetic, that is really more of that fight or flight, right? Mobilization is the fight, and flight, and the fight is more of that threat. Being able to be there is okay. It's being able to process through it and go into that state of that ventral vagal, be able to go calm again and be connected to where you're at. And that the dorsal vagal is more of if we're there, that's that fawn or freeze. That is that immobilization, or you feel so overwhelmed you can't necessarily respond, react, or process. So there's a trajectory of, depending on where you are there, you still have to go through the other states of that sympathetic before you're into that ventral vagal. And that's the goal, is that we're supporting that with every adjustment. You are supporting that system functioning at a higher level and being more activated. So in closing, we talked about this last time, but I like showing it again for all ages. When you're just trying to ground, sometimes a very thing to get out of feeling unsafe into a safe place is this work. And this is really good to do with kids, is just naming 5 things you see, 4 things you hear, 3 things you touch, 2 things that you smell in that moment, and 1 thing that you taste. And in just doing that progressional grounding, you just help reset, and you say those things out loud if you can. Ways that we self-tone, ways that we activate this system. Vagal self-toning, we talked a lot about in the other workshop, so I just put 1 slide in here to address it, but doing the breath work is one of them. And we spent more work there because people asked about those things that they could do. Doing singing, humming, chanting, gargling, all activate that vagus nerve. So even if it's just making that kind of sound or noise, you're activating that part of the nervous system. You'll see people do this kinesio, like a taping right there along where the vagus runs on the side of the neck. So it's doing a small strip of tape just right underneath the ear there. There are things people have asked in the past about vagal stimulators. There's like little devices you can get that basically just you wear them and they kind of help you tap into more activation of that nervous system throughout the day. So it's a movement. It's pendulation. So the movement, dancing, there's it's that natural pulsation, right, between the states of expansion and contraction of the nervous system. We see it in birds and their wings and the opening and closing. It's a component that just is a basic principle of life, but that is that ebb and flow. And that is the component that movement really helps us do, to move into that discharge state, to discharge the buildup that's in the body and the nervous system there. So we'll end on this. To heal is to touch with love that which we previously touched with fear. So it's a component of, again, just if there's of something that is a trigger or a trauma has happened, your body and your brain has stored that, and it's about working through that component to get on the other side of that, in a sense, fearful state. So hopefully we got through some exercises that you guys could take with you and use after the last workshop. and just reiterated some components there from the first that help you understand that there's a process to going through. And if we're not sure and there's been traumas at different levels or at different age ranges, then that's a component to just talk with Dr. Iyer when you're in, and we can do some deeper evaluating on where you're at and what category, so we can help give you the right tools in addition to what you're doing here that you can be doing at home day to day. And that'll all support the process of your healing. So thank you for joining us. I know there's a couple chats. I'm just going to turn off the recording for tonight.